You want to answer first?
You go first.
Who we are together. We're a team. You know, we I believe we're the epitome of divide and conquer. Before this, we were talking about, okay, this child has to be here. I got to be here. You know, what are we gonna do? We can't make everything, but you know,
consider we can't make everything together.
We can't make everything together. And so with three boys, it's always virtually impossible. We want to make everything, but sometimes we can't. So together, we're a team. You know, we hold it down as a team. We rock as a team. I didn't really come to grips with that until probably about like maybe 3 years into our marriage. I started a PhD program without consulting my wife. And she was
What are you doing?
She was very compassionate about me not doing it because we just didn't have time. And I just finished my master's degree like the weekend before. So I started my master's the day of our wedding. Like my first class was my first assignment. Forgive me, y'all. But yeah, we're a team, and she presented it to me in that way because I love sports, I love football, I love anything competitive. I watch badminton; it doesn't matter. But she was like, you know, in our house, you know, I'm on the sidelines, you know, I'm coaching, I'm putting people where they need to be, but she's my general manager. You know, she's in the press box. She sees things from a different viewpoint than I see. When she said that, it made a lot of sense. And we're live and in color too. So you may hear one of our kids walk in, ask for some juice or a sandwich. You know, we are very mindful of our duties. So yeah, I would just say a team. What do you got?
Yeah, I would say together we're a team. Yeah. Had to go find team analogies and GM and manager and what does one do and what does the other do just to kind of make it work for Vince so that, you know, when I'm saying things like, okay, we need king size pillows because we have a king size bed and the sheet sets come with a king size pillow sham, you know, like breaking down because growing up for him, they didn't really have they're different size pillows. Like, what do you mean there's different size pillows? I thought it was just one pillow kind of fits all. But yeah, so separately, I think I would say that I am a nerd who loves God and loves to find God in all places. So like recently I started a garden, just kind of, I was like, we have this big backyard and I'm going to put some dirt in some grow bags and see what happens. And it's really funny to me that most of the time when you start a garden, the things that grow quick are vegetables, not fruit. And so it reminds me that when you read the scriptures, oftentimes it's fruit of the spirit. It's not a vegetable of the spirit. So vegetables grow fast, but fruits grow slower. So like an avocado takes 13 years before it'll grow fruit. Blueberries take 3 years from the time you plant the seed until you have a fruit. And so it just got me thinking like patience is not a quick crop to grow spiritually. So I am a nerd. I will nerd all the way out, quick, fast, and in a heartbeat. I'm somewhat of a girly girl.
Somewhat.
Yeah, I did a little sprinkle, just a little sprinkle of it. But yeah.
Yeah, and so separately, I would say this: I'm thankful for my wife. She lets me be me. You know, she lets me enjoy the things that I enjoy. You know, she's not one to be like, oh, we got to do all of this stuff together. For the most part, I'm watching sports by myself or with one of my sons. So, you know, my middle son in particular, like he'll sit there and watch. My kids like different sports, so you know he'll watch a football game with me or a basketball game with me. My nerddom stops at Star Wars. Only reason why I go and watch Marvel movies with them is because they like it. If it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't have ever seen a Marvel movie. But you know, marriage is about compromise. But I have an identity. She has an identity. So that's really what it is. And I also appreciate the fact too that, you know, I know that, my job, in the community, my calling, it calls me to be in front of people all the time. But my wife will be the first one to tell you, like, I really like being by myself. I grew up in a house with multiple people in it all the time. There was never really a time where I was alone. So I cherish my alone time. And I get a lot done in my space. Like, a lot of people are like, man, how do you work at the church? There's only a few people here. I work well alone. I like the team aspect, but I do enjoy that time, to where it's just me and my thoughts. And so, that's the beautiful thing. So apart from my wife, I mean, I do have my identity. I love music. You can see the vinyls behind me. She never complains. If I come home with a stack of vinyls, things like that, because that's how I escape. That's what I enjoy. So I'm really thankful, that she has the wherewithal to say, you know what, that's Vince. That's just who he is, and she's an emotional translator for me. Um, I'm very even keel. I don't get too high or low about things. And so sometimes people are like, is he excited? She's like, yeah, he's excited. It's just how I show emotions. So that's how we would answer that first question.
This
And
is
then
so beautiful. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead,
I
Ford.
was going to ask, like, are we moderating ourselves? Are we just going through the questions? Or are you going to keep us on pace? Because one of us will tend to.
One of us.
I'm gonna keep you guys up pace. Don't worry.
Okay,
Well,
great.
it's just so beautiful though that the cohesion and the understanding that you have of each other is really, really beautiful and it shines through. So thank you all so much for sharing that with us. So tell us, go back in time and tell us, how did you meet? And also give us your first impression of your spouse. Now we know there's going to be his and hers version. So you decide who's going to go first.
Yeah, so I saw my wife. I had seen her like a year before. So just long story short, we met at the National Youth Conference. But I saw her on the little like transit little bus, because we had a conference in '05 at South Carolina, and that campus was huge. And so, we would ride the little bus back to the dorm, and so she was sitting on the dorm. At the time, I had a whole girlfriend, so I saw her, and I introduced myself, but I kept it cool. The following year, I saw her again. We just happened to be sitting, so I sang in the all conference chorus, and her soprano section was next to my bass section. And so I seen her again, and I didn't say nothing. And so then I saw her at lunch, and I spoke to the whole table, and I just kept it general because I kept
You
it
just gonna
general.
get on here and tell tall tales.
These aren't all tales. This is how I remember. She said it was his and hers.
Okay.
This is mine's. So I met, and we met in 2006, at the youth conference, and we had a really, really great time. I believe we had a great time. And I actually ended up going out to Arizona around Christmas time, in 2006. When I was on break from college, and that trip didn't go the way the youth conference trip did. So I tell people all the time that we actually had like a gap of about 4 years where we didn't talk. I would send messages. She had a boyfriend. He didn't like that, so it was every. And I'm be honest with you, I did it on purpose. And But her mother kept me engaged though, because her mother would send me happy birthday messages, Merry Christmas. She would say Merry Christmas, son. And then in 2010 we reconnected on Facebook. And then she moved to Texas, and we got married. And we were married a little over 10 years now, to be 11 years in August. We got married, and we've been rocking ever since. And we, 3 kids, a lot going on. So that's how I remember my first impression of Antoinette. Oh man, I was like, whoo wee. I was like, yeah, I need to talk to this young lady, and yeah, that was my first impression. Um, she is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and still is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And so that was my first impression. Her first impression probably wasn't the same. But I'm gonna just give y'all that disclaimer and everything that y'all hear. It's on you, babe.
Yeah, so we met at the youth conference in 2006. I remember him talking to me the previous year on the bus. I forgot my shawl. I went back to the bus, went back to the dorm by myself. You're like, it's like the cardinal rule. You're never supposed to go anywhere by yourself. But I was like, it's raining. Nobody's going with me. I just forgot my shawl. Be real quick. So it was him and his girlfriend on the bus and me. And like he leaves her, walks over, introduces himself. And I had this look like, you really just gonna leave? Like,
I was sitting down. I said, hey, how you
you
doing?
got up, walked over to where I was.
I said, you was by yourself. My mama told me to be a gentleman.
I didn't interrupt your story. Anyways, so then the next year, he went to Southwestern with one of the girls that I grew up in my youth group with. And so like a few days or evening before, she was like, yeah, there's lots of guys who are like graduating or in the ministerial program. Ooh, just leaving the window and stuff. And so she was like, yeah, they're like, really interested in like you and you and you and you. And I was like, whatever. So it's like 15 girls. I don't know why there were no boys in our youth group. They just weren't. It was like 15 girls. So Vince walks over to the table and he makes eye contact with me and then turns and talks to everybody else. And then when he leaves, he makes eye contact with me. So like my first impression was, oh, he just walked over here and just gamed everybody, including me. And so that was lunch. And then, of course, you have evening devotional. So then at the end of devotional, one of my good friends, she was like in love with one of Vince's song leader buddies. And so I don't know how he found this out, probably because of the friend that he went to Southwestern with. Anyway, so they walk over together and then like, her and him walk and then Vince and I walk. And that was kind of the budding of our relationship. But yeah, he came out for Christmas. It was not, it was just like anticlimactic trip. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It just wasn't clicking like it was supposed to click. But we stay friends. Yeah, my mom would text him like religiously. Merry Christmas, son. Happy birthday. Happy New Year. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Memorial Day. You pick a holiday. My mom was texting Vince for something. And then when Facebook went public, she was like, look, you need to check out Vince's profile. Like it was a mess. Like talk about stirring the pot. She kept it stirred. But yeah, it was about 4 years that we've always had a great friendship. That's kind of, one of the things that I really appreciate about our relationship is that we have a friendship first. So we were occasionally, like maybe once every year and a half, send a message. And kind of what rekindled it for me, at least, was I have a cousin in the military and she was stationed in Spain at the time. And there's like a 15 hour time difference. And so Skype had like just kind of launched. So I would Skype from my computer so I could see her and her son and her family. And that was kind of how we stayed in contact. So one day I had my Skype open. And at the time, nobody had Skype. Like it was like 7 people. And so Vince sent me a message and was like, hey, we should do like a lunch date one day. And I was like, how is that going to work? Like, he was like, I'm going to be at my computer and I'm going to have my lunch. And you're going to be at your computer and you're going to have your lunch. And so that was like kind of, again, like I said, we've always had a great friendship.
I was ahead of my time before this world went virtual. I was ahead of my time. Listen, during the pandemic, I heard about a whole bunch of people that were doing, Zoom dates because of the pandemic. I was ahead of my time. I just want to let everybody know that.
Yeah. Looking back on it, it was very.
You are right, Brother Ford. You were prophetically on Skype, predicting what would come. All right, y'all. That is so, so beautiful. Sister Ford, did you share your first impressions of him?
But he gave me, Vince.
My first impression is like, what you think when you saw me?
Oh, you was cute, whatever, but, still be slick. Like, so slick. Like, yeah. It was cute. I don't, think back like 16 years. I thought you were cute. I just remember. I okay. My first impression was like when we talked. Like I was pre-med bio. Vince was pre-med bio. I was like, okay, cool. This is somebody I can like nerd out with. He changed his major because at the time everybody was pre-med chem, and like now that I've taken chemistry, I understand why. But at the time, chemistry wasn't getting it. But yeah, Vince ended up changing his major. But yeah, so then like at the end of the night, I went to give him a hug and I took like a deep sigh and he was like, you feel that sigh? That's some pheromones and those endorphins. That's your body is just releasing. So I was like, you cannot nerd out on like the hug I'm giving you before I go into the dorm. Like it's just a hug. It was so that was kind of my first impression. It was like, he's funny, he's a nerd, he loves God. This might be all right. That was now he doesn't have a girlfriend. Now he's introducing himself to me. That was kind of my first impression.
Okay, y'all. This is so incredible. But I heard something about a 4-year gap and everything. So tell us, how did you know things were getting serious to move to that point of marriage? And how did you know that your spouse was the one?
Well,
Okay, so in that 4-year gap, I ended up having a son, and for me, it really changed the way that I looked at relationships. For a long time, I didn't. It's like you have a child with someone that I wasn't married, and I grew up in the church, and so for a long time, I didn't think that I was ever going to be like quote unquote marriage material again. Anywho, so Vince and I start talking. Skype lunch dates turned into actual Skype sessions, late night after work, and lunch break. Like it was just like all the time Skype chat. And so my son, who was 2 at the time, he got sick, like just really bad allergies. And so we were on Skype one night, and Vince was like, where is he? Let me see him. And I was like, disclaimer, his allergies are really bad. His eyes are really puffy. And so when I showed him right now, and his like I could see tears start to like well up in his eyes. So like the connection wasn't. It was a lot deeper than I think I had initially thought that it was. Like they were attached. And then I'll say that. Of course, we all know that God doesn't speak in like a booming voice from the heavens, right? But I will say that He speaks to us, whether that's prayers, strangers, just a feeling that you have. So I was really struggling. Like I was working, I was going to school, I was being a mom, and so I was driving to work, and I just kind of had like this calm, like you should just move to Texas, pick a small town because cost of living is much more inexpensive, and you'll be able to thrive in a small town. And so I was like, Vince is in a small town. I should just get on a plane and see what it's like out there. And that was like literally like 45 seconds. That was my thought process. So I told my mom, and she was like, go, bye. What you telling me for? Did you book your ticket? Like, you going to see? Like, so when I booked my ticket, and Raynell, like my oldest son, he had like, I call him stage 5 clinger. Like, if you were not Gmail, Paw, Uncle Trey, or Mommy, he did not go to you. He did not want to be involved with you. Don't touch me. Don't look at me. So we get off the plane. We're not even all the way down the escalator, and he like leaps out of my arms into Vince's. Like, he never did that with anybody. They ended up losing his car seat. He stayed in Vince's arm the whole time. He wouldn't let him put him down. He didn't even want to be buckled in the car. Like it was the whole, and that for me was kind of like, okay, well maybe this is pretty serious. I initially was like, maybe this will just be a really great friendship, because again, we've always had a great friendship. But yeah, I think I had closed myself off to really I don't want to say perception of, but I had closed myself off to anything romantic. And God was really showing me along the way that like, hey, you remember that guy you said you was friends with? Here you go. So that's kind of for me how things ended up being more serious than I thought they were going to be.
Well, and I'll say this, like I knew, I've known since I was like 8, 9 years old that I wanted to be a dad. Like I always wanted to, like I'm that dad. Like I coach my son's soccer team. I crack the dad jokes. I throw the ball. I'm the neighborhood dad. So in my neighborhood, the kids that's outside, they know Vinny's dad. They know Raynell's dad. They know Mr. Ford. You know, I don't mind kids coming to my house. I don't mind kids in my yard. You don't have to mind. You can't be disrespectful, but I'm gonna coach your soccer team. I'm gonna be at your games. Like that's that. I'm the community dad. So I always knew that I wanted to have children. So Antoinette having a son didn't necessarily bother me. I never really even had that. I never really had that on my list. Like with women, like all right, she can't have no kids. Blah, blah. I didn't have that. It was more so, what does she bring to the table that, brings me closer to God and allows me to pursue my dreams. And I can encourage her pursue her dreams as well. And so I grew up without my father in the home in my formative years. So I've always knew that, like, yeah, man, I want to be a cold dad. Like, I want my kids to know that, like, they got the best dad in the world. So with Raynell, we clicked. And he has a lot of the same interests as me. He loves music. He's 13 now, so he going through some things. So we low key be beefing, but he's a lovely, smart child. And we spend a lot of time together. We crack jokes together, and he's always been very ahead of his time. It's like an old man trapped in a young man's body. So when he was 4, I could have deep conversations with him at Chick-fil-A. Like, we could just talk about stuff. Three. And we just had that relationship. But with Antoinette, I would say when I knew. I mean, I know people say, "Oh yeah, you knew when you first." I will say, and God rest my boy's soul, Byron Green. I did tell him that when I met Antoinette at the UConn, I was like, "Bro, that's gonna be my wife."
Yeah, you said you told him at Six Flags.
Yeah, I told him at Six Flags. I just could. I had never been around a woman that, like, I could just have fun with, and she loved hip hop too, and we would be in the car, and she'd be quoting, Big Daddy Kane lyrics, and I was like, man, this is crazy. A lot of people look at me crazy because if I'm a nerd about anything, I'm a nerd about hip hop, and so she knew just as much, if not more, than me. But when she moved to Texas, she took a chance. She took a chance, and I had a conversation with my mother, and my mom was like, "You got this girl move halfway across the country. You need to do right by her. You need to have a plan." She said, "Don't be stringing this girl along. If you're not gonna be serious, you need to tell her she need to go back to Phoenix, and you need to do right by this young lady." So it's kind of funny how we got married. So it wasn't really traditional. We were sitting on my mama's couch, on my mama's bed. We was in my mama's room watching TV, and I said, "Hey, you want to get married?" She's like, "Sure." I didn't think she was gonna say that, and so like 2 weeks later,
Wait, why not?
we went to the courthouse and we got married. I mean, we had a wedding, about 6-7 weeks later, we had a wedding at Dallas West Church of Christ, but yeah, that's how it ended up. Like, I ain't proposed or nothing. I was like, "You want to get married?" She was like, "Cool." So we So now I kind of feel bad. Like, I be looking on Instagram and I be seeing these dudes do all these extravagant, and I'm an extravagant thinker. So I I was like, man, I wish I could have done something like that. But what we did worked for us. So now that's not for the sisters and the men on this call. That's not for you to just accept something, but it worked for us. And that is our personality.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be like, "Yo, you want to go do this?" She'd be like, "Yeah, let's do it." Like, it is
Like moving to Ohio. It was like, hey, I got this interview. Okay, cool. Well, it's yours. I feel like it's yours because God put, like, that's just us. Like,
yeah.
that's
Like,
just
you
us.
want to move? Like, yeah, let's move. All right. So we packed up and we moved.
Yeah, that's just us.
All right, y'all. This love story is so dope. I love it. All right. So look back on some of the expectations you had before your marriage. What were some of the expectations you had of each other and of yourself before your marriage? And then how have they changed now?
That is a great question. My expectations were I wanted somebody that I could spend time with, but somebody that also understood that there are certain things that I like to do by myself. So, like to be honest, I really don't need anybody to watch a football game with me, because I watch it on like a different level. You know, I used to coach football at high school varsity football, so I kind of watch it differently. And I'm not really a joy to be around watching football, especially when the Cowboys are playing. Somebody that I wanted to be able to laugh with, enjoy things with, somebody that was willing to take chances and have goals of their own. A woman, I had an expectation, and this may sound shallow, but it's true. I wanted a woman that had a very pretty face, and and also that could cook. She had to be able to cook. That was a deal breaker for me. We didn't have no time for you to be looking at recipes and learning. Like, I need you to know how to make something happen in the kitchen, because I can cook. You know, I've never been one that couldn't. My mother raised us to be able to do all of these things on our own. So, you know, I've been cooking since I was like 8, been ironing my clothes since I was a kid, you know, so I didn't need anybody to do that. What I needed somebody that was that help, that compliment, and realizing that. And I haven't always been the most assertive communicator. So I would say in this pandemic, going to therapy and maneuvering through some other things, communication has been a challenge for me. And I harbor a lot of things. So I really needed somebody that was patient with that, to know that just because I'm not talking doesn't mean that I'm not thinking. Yeah. What were your expectations?
I think for me, I wanted someone that word was bond. So like if you say you're going to do XYZ, then you're going to do XYZ. I wanted um you know, oftentimes I hear people say, like, you know, what did Sierra pray for before she married Russell Wilson? It's like, if you really want to know the prayers of a woman who's had a child and then got married, like, I asked God for someone who was going to love my son more than I did. Um, and I feel like, you know, I'm talking to God. Like, He made the stars and the heavens and made people cross the Red Sea on dry land. Like, surely He can. And so that was like a really big expectation. And Vince really fit that. I think one of our first arguments, even before we got married, I had fallen asleep before evening worship, and Vince took Raynell down to the building in Nacogdoches for evening worship, and like he was like, "You're not going to evening worship. You just not gonna go." Like I heard him, and then he slammed the door, and I woke up, and the house was dark, and I was like, "Where is my son? Like you just took my baby to the house of God." Okay, all right. Well, we're gonna talk about this when you get back. But for right now, thanks God, thanks. Like, so I wanted someone who was family oriented. I wanted a partner in life, like, you know, someone who would share their biggest dreams and their fears and really, I don't want to say plan out life together because we don't really plan, as you see, but I just wanted to be included in, I wanted a teammate. I wanted someone who was going to be in this with me. I think one of my favorite things about Vince when we first kind of rekindled was like we'd go to Wendy's. I was like, I got $10, you got $10. Who can get the most for these $10? And then now it's like, okay, I have 100, you have 100. What can we do with this 200? Like, where are we going for a family vacation? And we've literally done this with like $500. You know, it's just like that. I just wanted a teammate. I didn't want to fight somebody in a relationship. I just wanted somebody who was on the same page, if that makes any type of sense whatsoever. I don't feel like I'm rambling. Okay.
It makes sense.
It makes sense. Okay.
That was a good answer.
It was. Yeah, y'all got some good answers up and through here. So were there any expectations that you had that changed once you got married? Like, yeah, that don't make no sense.
Well, I would say expectations for myself.
Yeah.
Because what I thought she wanted, and I'm talking about material things, she didn't want. So I was like literally killing myself, grinding, working. We lived in Phoenix. I was teaching middle school. I was working overnight at Home Depot. I was preaching, driving Lyft, all because I thought that my wife wanted this grandiose type of lifestyle that she really didn't even want.
Meanwhile, I'm praying like, Lord, let him be let go from this Home Depot job. Let somebody cancel on Lyft. Let him just catch a nap in the parking lot. Lord, he's doing too much. Like, yeah.
And so I didn't, and that's a testament to not praying together because I didn't know. And it wasn't until, again, I referenced my mother again. She said, you know, the reason why you pray with your wife is there's things that she'll disclose to God that she's not going to tell you. And so I would hear things in prayer that would answer questions that I had frustrations about. Um, so you know that was more so the expectation on my end, not necessarily for her. Um, you know, there are some expectations that I have, but I feel like we can communicate those. It takes me a little time to come around, right? Because you know, as a man, a lot of times it's very difficult, and sisters, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes this is how I see it. Sometimes my wife can be upset at herself, but it's conveyed in the same type of action as if she's frustrated with me, right? So I pull back and I'm like, well, man, I don't really want to say that, right? Like, man, how come this isn't done? Or how you said you were going to do this? Like, what happened with this? And so that comes to now she's upset with herself, but it kind of manifests the same way as when she's mad at me about something. So avoidance has been one of my downfalls. So really the expectation is to pull it out. So that's why I referenced therapy earlier, because that's why I went to therapy, number one, because you know I felt overwhelmed. I was having panic attacks, but I also felt like I couldn't communicate in my own home. I was just harboring everything, and it just wasn't healthy. It wasn't healthy at all. So I feel like now God is like my wife. One thing that I'm like very man, I'm like jealous of her in this way. Like Nell is like really cool. Like I'm cool by myself, but she's cool like by herself. Like she don't need nobody. Like she's one deep. It's cool. She got homies. Don't get me wrong. She got friends, but she's like cool. For me, like I thrive in community settings, right? So like I didn't even realize until like last night because at first I wasn't gonna go to hot practice, and I was like, I don't feel like going to hot practice, and then I was sitting there, and my line brother was like, man, you gonna really let me be here with just solo? He's like, pro fights here, so I ended up going, and I left, but I felt great. I was like, man, that's what I was missing. But it had been like a few weeks since I had seen any of my fraternity brothers, and so I realized it. But I'm thankful to her because there's so many things going on in this house. She was like, go. She's like, I know if you don't go, it's gonna eat you up inside because I know you miss them. So yeah, so I would say the expectations that I have of myself have changed, not necessarily the expectations that I have of her.
Yeah, I would say the same. It was not my intention when we first got married to be a stay-at-home mom, wife, domestic engineer, however you want to call it. And so I think going into it, I was like, okay, well, it's supposed to be like 1950s June Cleaver, right? Everything in its place and everybody in their place and never a hair out of place. And that's just not how it goes at all. Like, if you have kids, they can just wreck a place in like 2.5 seconds. And that is frequently what happens. And I think I was harder on myself for that, and especially in the beginning than I really should have been. And I'll slide this in here. I'm really thankful for honest and transparent Christian couples Couples to say that, like, a woman has 300 words that she has to say every day, and a husband has 100. And so, when your husband gets home, you just want to explode on him with words. He doesn't have time for all them words. Like, you got to find somebody else to talk all them words to, because he doesn't want to hear it. Like, give that man his space. Give him about 45 minutes before he gets, like, I'm really thankful for couples that, like, Raynell and Vince need to have their own relationship separate and apart from you. So send them out to Chick-fil-A once a week. Send them out. That for me really helped. The scriptures say that, like, the older women teach the younger women, and they did, and I'm thankful. And that really helped the expectation I had on myself. Like, I am now a lot more forthcoming with the fact that I am not perfect. And it's because of imperfect Christians that I believe that talking about my imperfections really helps somebody else.
That is so powerful. Just the concept of having people who are transparent enough to help walk you through your life. Awesome. Wow. And the changing expectations of ourselves. I want to come back to this point of, Brother Vince, you said you went to therapy. Um, very rarely have I heard of husbands, Black men, men in the Church of Christ, ministers in the Church of Christ, talking openly about going to therapy. Can you tell us a little bit about how you made that decision to go to therapy? And it doesn't sound like you went together. It sounds like you went by yourself. How did you make that decision?
Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of alludes to question number 5, because it wasn't that I wanted to walk away from my marriage, more so that it was I wanted to walk away from everything. Everything. The only thing that I did not necessarily find myself not wanting to do was being a dad. Like, because again, I'm good at it. I love doing it. My boys bring me joy, like a bunch of joy. Like, I kiss on my boys, I hug them. When I walk in the house, I'll be like, oh, it's daddy hug time. Let's go. Right? I sing songs in the morning at the top of my lungs, wake them up. Like, I'm that dad, what you see, like in sitcoms, like that's me. And it's not me trying to be somebody that I'm not. That's just who I am. But I wanted to, like, literally walk away from everything. I wanted to walk away from ministry. I wanted to walk away from. I just didn't feel like I had a voice in my marriage. And so, one of the ladies at church, she's a doctor, and I talked to her and I said, "Hey, you're a doctor. I know you got doctor friends. I need to talk to somebody." And this was like April of the pandemic. And I'll tell you, man, if you haven't went to therapy, like, therapy was rough. Like, I feel like I'd been in a 12-round fight. I'm talking about all these emotions and my childhood, and she's telling me, you got childhood emotional neglect and all this other stuff, and how to be assertive, and, like, it was literally like I was retooling my mind. So there would be times where, like, we would be having a conversation, and I'd be like, okay, uh, I'm about to be assertive right now, and I really need you to hear me, And, like, I would have, like, I would get my therapy papers. All right, so, and I would literally read from it, like, until it became comfortable. You know what I'm saying? And so now there's words that I'll, like, say in sentences, and she'll kind of, like, her eyebrows are raised, like, okay, he about to say something that is really meaningful right now. I'm an advocate for it, man. I think everybody needs to, especially Black men. As many of us grew up without our fathers in the home, as many of us who were emasculated by our mothers, because they, there were many times where I would hear my mom like, I ain't raising no punks. So we had a very hard exterior growing up, and we didn't really have a place to let our emotions out except with each other when my mom was at work and wasn't there. And so that was the key for me. We didn't necessarily do couples counseling. I just took it upon myself as a leader of my home to say, right? You need to go talk to somebody because you wilding. And so I did that. And it's given me a high sense of peace. It's allowed me to be able to maneuver through things. It's allowed me to be able not just assertive with her, but assertive with my parents, assertive with my siblings, assertive with my friends, even in the church space, because ministry for us was very traumatic our first go round. And so, anything that triggered me in that moment consistently, yeah, like at the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, man, I'm about to walk away from all this. And, I got a master's in public administration. My kids will be straight. Like, that's just, that was the approach that I took. But going to therapy, gave me a sense of stick-to-itiveness. And that wasn't the first time we had a conversation like that. When I was working a lot, we were in Phoenix. I'll never forget. Antoinette said, "You here, but you're not here. Like, you here in body, but you're not here mentally or emotionally." And literally, like, she was thinking about going to move back here with her mom. And that was a wake-up call. But therapy really helped.
That's powerful. That is
I want to
powerful.
see how the shirt comes out.
Me too. Let me
I'm
know
being
how that shirt
nosy.
come out when you find out.
All right. So I want to take this opportunity to do a shameless plug. This month is National Men's Health Month. And next
What?
month is National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. So I just really want to say, Black men, we love y'all. We want you all to be able to lead in the church, lead in the home, do your thing. Go get some therapy because it's going to help you. It's going to bless you. It's going to bless the people that are around you. And I think for the Ford, I thank you so much for being vulnerable enough to share with us, like, look, I got my therapy and I'm on my way doing my thing. I really appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. All right. So question 5, how did you all cope during challenges and deciding not to walk away?
How you go?
I think for me personally, because my parents got divorced when I was super young, I don't ever remember them together. For me, it was more of a like walking away is like the last, like like I like either it's kill him or walk away. Those are the last. Those are the two options. Like we're not just going. I'm not gonna sign no paper. Yes, that was.
Chill. You know they're recording this.
I'm aware, and it's gonna be on YouTube. I know, but I'm talking about my own personal. That's just how I felt. Like it was just, you asked, "Do you want to get married?" Yeah, sure. It was like, okay, ain't no easy way out of this. That's how I felt. Just being honest. Anyways, so for me, like that was my mentality. Like that, it needs to be some serious turmoil, some serious we can't work through, some serious Jesus and laying on somebody's couch is just not gonna fix this. So like, what were we, 5-6 years into our marriage? I think it was after we had Vinny. Vinny is our middle son. And Vince was like he said, just doing too much. And I would tell him like, hey, I'm concerned you're working 5 jobs and you're hardly home and you're not sleeping. Like, are you okay? And at that point, I think that's probably when I began to see that he would answer my questions, but he wasn't really answering my questions. And so I finally got to the point I was like, look, you here, but you're not here. Like, Vinny is your namesake and he's running around and you're not paying any attention to what's going on. Like, do you want us here? Essentially was kind of like how I phrased it. Like, because we can go. My mama down the street, like, and that was kind of like a spark of, but I don't think it was ever like I wanted to walk away. It was just like a shake, like, hey. And there have been a few instances like that for us in our marriage, like just a shake, like a hello, do you hear me? I'm here. Are you there? Like that type of thing. Can you go back up to the question? I want to make sure I answer all parts. Colin Jesse.
Hold on, real quick. Let me see. Yeah.
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 How did you all cope during
Cool.
challenges and deciding not to walk away?
So I think a personal mantra for me in our marriage is to be proactive and not reactive. And what I mean by that is, we actively attend marriage retreats. We actively read books. We actively, like, we're Prepare and Enrich certified. And that just kind of happened again because one of the great couples, we were in Dallas, and Lamont Ross, he's the minister at Marsalis. He does the Prepare and Enrich training, at least he did for us. And it just happened to be a weekend where I was there, and Vince was like, come on, you should go. I remember I was like, I'm not going. Like, you do the marriage counseling. What am I supposed to be there for? And Sonia Jackson, one of the wife of this couple we love, she was like, God made it so that you would be there, so that you could get that training, so that you can be in training those couples, so that they can hear your voice, because wives and husbands need, both parts of it. And so, going through Prepare and Enrich training, so then it's like, okay, this is how I assert my wants and needs and not necessarily my feelings in a conversation. This is how I ask for this. So it just kind of gave me more tools in my wife toolbox, if you will, of how to communicate effectively, and not just like, you never want to be a nagging wife. Like, you don't want to be. Sometimes it happens, but you don't want to be. And so just kind of like an extra tool, so that so those kind of things, like I said, proactive, not reactive. And so then, when you see a small problem, it doesn't turn into something that's big and uncontrollable. Just kind of tackling it when it's small.
Yeah.
Those kind of things.
And for me, it was, I would say, patience, knowing that coping along the lines of having an opportunity to say, all right, not right now, right? Like, play a couple games of Madden and then come back to it. You know, go hang out with the bros and then come back to it, right? Like that's kind of been my coping mechanism. Go hit the gym, and then, like, we don't necessarily, and that's, my wife taught me that. Antoinette taught me that. Like, I don't want to talk about it right now. Okay. I was usually that person, like, nah, we got to fix this as soon as but that was doing more harm than good. And then another way I cope with not walking away is, there is a generational impact that divorce has on families. I think about it, and it makes it difficult. It makes it difficult, not in a sense of the couple, but on the kids. So when I go home, I got to go to two houses, right? I got to figure out a way, or how I'm gonna split time with my mom and my dad, and they both are very territorial. So, like, my dad, like, if I don't get over there within the first 48 hours, oh man, you ain't even came to see your old man. Or he'll try to entice me, with like some barbecue. Hey, I'm gonna throw some on the grill later. You want to come by? Bring the boys. You know, so it's that type of situation. Or if I don't go by my mother's house first, it's you can at least stop by. So it's hard. Or even for my wife, right? Like, her dad lives in Austin, her mom lives in Phoenix, so it's tough. Like, it makes it very difficult, and then kids have to navigate multiple families. So her mother has her husband and her brother, and then her dad, he has his wife and his children. My mom is single. She come up here a lot. But my dad and my stepmother, my sister, and my two cousins that are there, my two little brothers. So there's generational implications with that, and you put your children in a very vulnerable place, to almost pick sides, not even knowing that they're picking sides. And so I don't want to do that to my kids. So that's been my coping skill, because I think about, like, okay, yeah, sure, we could walk away, but now I gotta navigate. My kids gotta navigate us And God never intended for kids to navigate their parents. They intended for the parents to help the children navigate life. So that's been a way we cope with it. And I'll say stuff like this too. Places where we can be reminded that we're not perfect and we have rough weeks. This week has been one of them. It's been a challenge. We got health stuff going on, and kids and it's out for the summer and my grocery bill done went up, so I'm just like, man, like, we gotta work on us, and this is a reminder. This helped me see that. So we cope with that. Pre-pandemic, the Metro Church in LA, they have one of the dopest marriage retreats, and I don't say that just because I got a lot of family and friends there, but like they have one of the dopest marriage retreats. Invest that money, spend that money, invest in your marriage. I feel like if you got to do something for your entire life, you might as well invest in it. And so I also cope with podcasts. Dad Tired Podcast is one of them. I listen to that podcast faithfully. I'm in that group with those men. We talk about things. And I also cope, with my good brother, my good friend, Alvin. He is somebody that's a sounding board for me because it's very difficult, especially being in ministry. People are looking for a little entry, like, oh, he having problems, or she having problems. So having somebody that I can bounce stuff off of, who's going to give me some sage wisdom and advice. And I will also say we cope too because Antoinette's mom is just like the greatest. She's very, she's hands off, but she's observant, right?
Yeah.
So she knows when something's not right. But she's not one to be like, well, that's my daughter and I'm always going to take her side.
No,
There are times where, she's like, oh, your husband right. Or there are times where she tell me, son, I don't know about that. So we have people that are invested from afar that we can lean on and trust.
And there's times I'll call her and she say, like, what you calling me for? You got to talk to your husband. Like, get off the phone with me. Love you, bye. Yeah.
Yeah. So community, man, is big. Yeah, absolutely. Solid network of support. That's how we cope. That's how I cope.
Yes, 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 yes. I love what you said about investing in your marriage because this is a lifetime thing. So put the money in, put the time in, go and get what you need. I love it. All right. So can you tell us a little bit about the concepts of trust and boundaries in the context of a godly marriage?
Mm. Well, I think the concepts of trust, one of the concepts is communication, right? Another concept is, again, that identity, she has her space, I have mine. We're not the type to, go through each other's phone. If she want to see, you know, something like here, it ain't nothing to hide. Another concept of trust and boundaries would be, you know, her space is her space. Like her friends, that's her partners. Like I don't really have to engage in that. What they talk about when she go to brunch with, you know, her homies from Genesee Avenue after worship brunch or whatever, I don't ask what they talked about. To be honest, I don't really care. But I just that's the trust. She need that space. She need a place where she can speak freely, right? That where she can be who she is with her friends, right? And so that's always been my aspect of of trust, right? Um, Boundaries, I would say that's something that I don't think we've ever really just talked about it. Like, I think we're at a place now where we really understand. Yeah, we never really like talked about, but it's been understood. But like, there's just I guess because we're such creatures of habit, there's certain things that I do. Like if I come home and it's been a long day, and I kick my shoes halfway off like I normally do, and I grab the Xbox remote, right? It's not personal. It's like I had a long day, and I just kind of need to just play a little game real quick. And literally, like after that game is over, I'm like all ears. And so we just always had like the ability to give each other space with things. Um, mm,
Yeah. Trust, I feel like for me, it starts out at 1,000, and then if things happen, but there's never been a again, I guess it goes back to us being great friends. Like we have a really great solid communication foundation. So um and I'll say this, personal insecurities I feel like should be worked out on their own. Like I do my best not to let my own personal insecurities push on to Vince. Like, because I have them, right? I think we all do, but like, the need to like go through his phone. I think I heard someone say, like, if you're searching for something, you're going to find it. So if you're going through somebody's phone at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're going to find something you don't want to see. With it, like, anything can be misconstrued or taken out of context. So, yeah, trust. I, so our photographer on our wedding day, we took like 15,000 pictures, and he left. He said, I'm going to give the bride 10 minutes to like compose yourself before you walk down the aisle. And we were already married, but I vividly remember having like a mirror to mirror conversation with myself. And I was like, don't you get in this marriage and mess it up. So don't you get in here and project your own insecurities on your husband. Don't you get in here and self-sabotage. Don't, like, vividly. And it is still something that I have a mirror to mirror conversation with myself, like, about trust. Like, if my husband hasn't given me any reason not to trust him. There's no reason to act like there's not trust. Boundaries, yeah, we don't really communicate them, but ain't no new friends. Like, you got your LBs and you got me. What you mean? um, so and again, I think it just goes back to like we're just really good friends. Like, I was the
what? What was you? You my wife, Antoinette.
I'm your wife now, yes. But 16 years ago, I wasn't your wife.
No, you weren't. You actually were not. I didn't have no wife.
No, but I remember,
I had a little
that part.
lady.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody had relationships.
Everybody has relationships. Not everybody talks to their current wife about the relationships they used to have, so then the wife knows the playbook.
I had to give you all my secrets.
So so I guess I know all the secrets. So it's kind of hard to like talk about. Anyways, that's how I navigate trust and boundaries.
We want to be the best example we can be for our children.
Yeah.
So we talk. I mean, some stuff they don't need to hear, but
we talk openly, we fuss openly, we make up openly. I think if you have a family, your kids need to see all of that. They need to see the highs and the lows and the in betweens.
We have fun openly.
Yeah.
Right. Like, we, in the kitchen cooking, we both have Texas roots. And I don't think you talked about that earlier either. So her moving to Nacogdoches, Texas wasn't necessarily like this outlandish idea. First and foremost, she got an uncle that lives 70 miles away from my apartment in Nag.
Both my parents are from small towns in East Texas.
Right.
Both of them.
So
moving into a small town in Texas, it's not like, it's not great.
And I knew that. And I had some partners that was from Mount Pleasant that went to school with me. And when I told them, like, hey.
No, they saw a picture on Facebook. Was like, you married a Rockwell? Sure did.
Yeah, so they were like, all right, you better not do that stupid, right? So, she got them country uncles, like them uncles, you know what I mean? So, on both sides. Yeah, so it wasn't no, I mean, it took faith. Don't get me wrong, it took faith. But what I'm saying is that she was not defrauded of a network of support. So I think that's one of the things that I encourage, especially the young ladies at church. Like, if you're going to move, young men too, there needs to be some sort of support that, like, when you on your last dollar and a McDouble is $1.59, can you call somebody and get a sandwich? You know what I'm saying? So that's been the key. And so anytime if she has to step out of her comfort zone and go somewhere where there is no support, then the support that I have needs to be supportive of her, right? So when we came here, one of the things that really drew me in to Genesee Avenue, and I think my bishop's wife is on here, Sister Williams. One of the things that drew me to Genesee was that they love Antoinette, right? It wasn't about what your husband can do from the pulpit or in the community. Like, they rock with her. They love her. They check on her. Like, when she had, little health scare a couple weeks ago, man, folks bringing by food. People was checking in, calling me, Brother Ford, how your wife, blah, 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 blah. Like, they really, really care. And that was the beauty of it. And that's one of the reasons why I know that God put us here, because we have a huge amount of support in this city. And I mean, even furthermore, I mean, my bishop, he lived 2 streets over. You know what I mean? So it's like an eye-opening experience, because even though it's us, right? I don't have any family here. She doesn't have any family here. But God let us know that you do got family here. And so that's been the beautiful piece to that puzzle.
Amen. That leads us straight into our question of how how does God show up, and what role does God have in your marriage?
Um,
How
how
does
does
he
he
show
show
up?
up? He shows up to me in a calming way through my wife, because she recognizes when God is moving. And she'll say it. We'll be in the car driving. Oh, winds of change. God is such a peaceful God. And I'll be like, oh, here we go. Here we go. Something about to happen. I got to get ready. I'm telling you, I'm serious. Literally, I'll never forget. Before we moved here, she told me, she said, man, God about to do something, man. We about to get out of here. I was like, nah, babe. The church got all this land. We about to build. I'm about to do this. Da, da, da. She's like, mm-mm. And that's how he shows up. He shows up with us like this. When we're able to be a encouragement to somebody else together. Because that's one of the things that I feel like we're still navigating is, how do we minister as a team from considering the position that I have, right? Because it's not like she can just come up there and we can preach a lesson together. But we've had opportunities these past couple of years to be on forums like this, or we co-taught the Midwest marriage retreat this past year. So I feel like God shows up in that way. And I also feel like between us, God also has allowed us to be the epitome of, all have fallen short, right? Because, we tell people, like, all right, my oldest son is 13. We've been married 10 years. You can do math, right? So, somebody, what I'm saying? Like, and when nobody's perfect, man. And I think that's the beautiful thing. And she has an ability to be that light and that encouragement uh, to women in church, because there's a lot of scrutiny that women get when they have a child out of wedlock. There's a lot of scrutiny that women get when they find themselves in relationships that aren't necessarily healthy. And I feel like in the church, because of its model, we've protected men in a manner that um, has almost veiled our mistakes. And so it's I think it's been beneficial that we've been able to, God shows up in our marriage through our ability to be able to minister in this way. No. Okay.
Amen. Amen. Powerful. All right, guys. So I want you to go back in time in your mind. And what would you tell your single self before getting married? And what advice do you have for singles that desire kingdom marriage?
I would tell my single self No, you go first. You go first.
I think I would tell my single self that your marriage is your marriage. It's not necessarily going to look like anyone else's. You and your husband have to craft that together. When we taught at the Midwest Women's Retreat, the Midwest Marriage Retreat, uh, Dr. Rwampa, she came up to me after. She was like, cleave. Like she's like, the root is like cultivate. Like you're creating something essentially like your garden. She's like, so if Vince and I, our garden is going to look different than anyone else's garden. So you can, love your aunt's marriage or your mom's marriage or your big cousin's marriage, but essentially your marriage is yours and you have to cultivate it in a way that is organic to you and your spouse. So going in without a set like expectations, like he's going to take the trash out or he's going to cut the grass or um and more in terms of concepts like I want him to take care of me when I'm sick, or I want him to be family, or I want travel to be something that's essential to us, like those concepts instead of actions. Yeah, cultivating your own marriage I think would be the biggest thing, and not putting your own insecurities onto someone else. Like you have to work those out yourself, like that is yours. And the understanding that everyone has baggage and insecurity and things that they bring with them, and imperfections make people better. I think that's probably one other thing I would tell my single self. Yeah, that's about it.
I would tell the 23, 24-year-old me that, man, God provides. Um, and I know that can sound cliche, but he provides, because it wasn't like I was just looking. He placed her in my path. And if you believe that this is God's desire, his call on your life, um, surround yourself with the right people. I believe a lot of times, and this is even for me, I look back on relationships that I've had, I found them in the wrong places. And then I tried to impose a godly attitude on a sinful situation. So I can't meet a woman in a spot where, like, would you look for a wife there? I think that's the key, right? Like, so if I'm at, I'm at the hookah spot, like, am I going there to look for a wife? Or am I going there to look for, somebody to kick it with? Right. So like when you go to the grocery store, you don't you don't go to the bread section looking for apples and oranges. And so I would tell my single self that, like, man, God gonna provide for you. And even now, thinking about it, because times get tough. It's like, whoo, oh, you want to play football now? Okay, all right, whoo, man, summer grocery bill, it's different, right? So for all y'all get married, you have kids, just know you need to put some money back for them hungry kids, man. So I would say that he provides, he always puts you in a place to flourish in your marriage. I would also tell myself, young brother, don't be so hard on yourself. That's been my issue. I'm very, very hard on myself. And my wife knows it. So she'll tell me. And the funny thing is, my 8-year-old, Vinny Mac, man, we in the car. We going to get some Gatorade from the gas station, right? That's our like little trip. You know what I mean? It's amazing what kids like. So I said, Vinny, man, I'm really sure. I was telling him about some stuff I was struggling with. This little 8-year-old told me? He said, Dad, you were never meant to be perfect. And I said, woo wee. I said, boy, you want to preach Sunday? He said, huh? And I was like, I'm just playing. But no, seriously though, I would just tell you, like, don't be so hard on yourself. God provides, and man, don't expect don't expect to don't try to find a godly woman in a sinful situation.
Oh, that's good. Oh my goodness. You all, I cannot thank you enough for bringing this to the Jesus Sprinkle, your vulnerability, your transparency, your wisdom. Thank you so much. Are there any final words that you want to just impart to wrap it up for us here?
You got some final words?
I don't think so. You got
No,
some final words?
I'm a preacher. I always got a final word. No, I would say thank you all. I appreciate you all for tapping in with us. Sister Hardy, Sister Suggs, I appreciate y'all for doing this. This has been really cool. It's always one of the things that I'm thankful for in the pandemic is that we've been able to connect with people who we would, in just a regular situation, probably would have never met. And so it was good to connect with y'all. I think y'all are doing a great thing. If y'all need some recommendations on couples, I know some real cold couples. We were talking about Sonia and John Jackson. I believe they would be outstanding for this. I believe, Alvin is on here, him and his wife Sabrina. I don't know if y'all have had Lamont Ross on, him and his wife Stacy. They'd be really good for this as well. So, yeah, like if y'all need some recommendations or however we can be of help, I'm about to send my young adult women to this call. I'm about to tell them tomorrow. I'm going to tell them from the pulpit. I'm going to say, Lord, we had a time, young sisters, if you're looking for some encouragement, I got the place for you. I'm thankful for that. And it's good to see some people on here, some people I know and some people I don't know. So thank y'all again.